have passed away. Also, there was no more sea. Then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Would you bow your head and pray with me, please? Father, at the start of this celebration of life of your son, David C. Hill, may we honor you, Father. May we honor David, and may we honor the family and friends gathered here today for his memorial. This makes us stop, gives us pause. And yes, we rejoice that a victory has been won. Yes, we rejoice that David is safe in the arms of Jesus, but there are still tears, there's still sorrow, there's still pain. This morning I pray for his children. I pray for his grandchildren. I pray for his new great-grandchild. And I pray that you'd comfort them, that they could understand a dad, a grandfather, a great-grandfather had a life well lived, and a man who loved his family. So I pray that everything we do today, Father, glorifies you, can be positive and uplifting, and can be a glory and honor to David. Come into our midst. Holy Spirit, bless us today. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. So you have the obituary on the back of your handout or inside your handout, and I'd like to just read it. David C. Hill, 85, of Summerlin, Florida, died August 4th, 2017 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. His final days were spent happily visiting with family and friends and sharing stories of a life filled with love and laughter. David was born on January 3rd, 1932 in New York City to Edmund George and Louise Elizabeth Hill. He grew up on Long Island. As a young man, David earned the rank of Eagle Scout. David graduated from Alfred University, class of 54, and Hofstra University, class of 55. He loved fishing with his brother Gordon. The brothers became avid sport fishermen, being influenced by their father, Pop Hill, and maternal grandfather, Clifford Hewiston, both known for being two of the early pioneers of saltwater fly fishing. After moving to South Florida in 1963, he was a business manager of the Fort Lauderdale Orthopedic Group for over 30 years, working with his brother, Gordon Hill, MD. David was preceded in death by his wife, Beverly Hill, and is survived by his brothers, Gordon Hill, Priscilla, and Malcolm Hill. His children, Linda Hill Busfield, Charlie, Susan Hill Turner, David Hill Jr., Susan, Elizabeth Hill Hall, Ken, Todd Hill, Rosie, Tom Hill, and Tim Hill, Jennifer. His grandchildren are Andrea Turner Herring, Matt, Elise Hall Heinich, Andy, Kevin Hall, Charnay, Jonathan Hill, Logan Hill, Callie Hill, Colton Hill, Ryan Hill, Megan Hill, and Mackenzie Hill. David has a great-granddaughter, June Elizabeth Heinich, and a stepson, Joel Stroud. He also has many beloved nieces and nephews. Memorial and celebration of life services will be August 19th at 11 a.m. at First Baptist Fort Lauderdale, and on September 16th at 11 a.m. at Big Pine Key United Methodist Church, 280 Key Deer Boulevard. Contributions in David's name may be made to his beloved Big Pine Key UMC, where he worshiped and served as treasurer. I'd like to have Betsy come and share with us the 23rd Psalm, please. Betsy, in lieu of. Thank you. God bless you.
Read along the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still water. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Thank you for the reading of the word, Ken.
Thank you.
So one neat thing about planning memorial services, and that may sound strange to you, but is we like to feature the music that your loved one enjoyed. So this morning we have 3 selections, and we're going to start with How Great Thou Art, and it's sung by Sandy Patty.
I
Another one of the favorite things that I get to do is I get to hear people speak about the life of the loved one that we're celebrating. And this morning we're going to do that. We're going to celebrate his life. I'm going to ask Dr. Gordon if you would come and share with us a few words. We'd appreciate it. Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Thank you. I'm Dave's brother. You got another brother there, too. Mackie. My first recollection of Brother Dave, I don't know how old I was, but I must have been very, very young, because I remember him being a tiny baby, and we're only 13 months apart. And you know, my folks had a 1928 Chrysler sedan. I didn't know that at the time because I was just a little kid, but he was swung in a hammock between the two posts, between the back and the front of the car. I saw this little thing swing, and my mother said, "That's your new brother." Yeah, you know, somehow that's a dim memory, but I never forgot it. Now, we could say a lot of things about David and cry and all that, but this is a celebration, isn't it? And so, I want to tell you some stuff that's kind of neat, real neat. We were very close. Close the way, almost as close as twins. Now we got two twins here. Are they here today? Raise your hand, boys. Yeah. Yeah. Those are Dave's boys, and they're twins, and they're going to know what I'm talking about. Some of the rest of you may not know or not believe, but there is a bond between close brothers that's hard to define. I remember when you guys were little, and one of you was in a hospital being treated, and the other one was at home, and you knew what was happening to your brother, but nobody told you. That kind of thing. You call it telepathy, whatever it is. It's not something we understand. We just don't know. Well, that's the way it was with Brother Dave and me. Toward the end, for example, he could read my lips, but nobody else. He had to read lips because even with his hearing aid, he couldn't hear anymore. Yeah. And I'll tell you more about that in a bit. Okay, so we were extremely close. I remember our days during the Depression. I was born in 1930, he was born in 1932, and those are Depression days. Nobody had any money, and we didn't either. We didn't know that, because we were rich in other ways. We had each other, and later on, a few years later, Mackie was born. You know, as little kids, David and I were much closer than we were with Mackie, only because he was 5 years different. And we gave him the day. Yeah, we teased him whenever. You remember, Mackie, one time we were fishing off in Great South Bay, and the two of us didn't agree with you, so I looked at David, and David looks at me, we picked you up, threw you overboard. Yeah, we knew you knew how to swim, but we threw you overboard. We wouldn't let you back on the boat until you apologized. Yeah. Well, the adversity that Brother Dave and I provided for Mackie gave him the grist to be successful in life. He could handle anything once he could handle his two brothers. Yeah. And so it went. We spent many summers, most of our summers on Fire Island, when we lived in a bathing suit. Didn't have any fresh water to bathe in. We bathed in the salt water. Yeah. Come home at night, our bathing suits would be full of salt and sand, and so were our bunks. We didn't have electricity. We had candles and kerosene lanterns. Yeah, and an outhouse out back. Yeah. Yeah, but that's the way we lived during the summers, and we loved every minute of it. And David and I would always be together every single day. We went clamming, we went fishing, we'd sell our clams. One time we sold enough clams that with a little help from our parents, and not much, we were able to buy a sailboat. Well, by then, that was wartime, Second World War, and you couldn't buy gas because my father needed the A card for his ration gas. He had to get to work and stuff. So we would either row to where we wanted to fish, or we'd take the sailboat that we eventually could buy, and we'd get to the fishing grounds and get back again. We did a lot of things our parents didn't know what we were doing. Now, David was always a good boy. He never did anything bad. I did. But I get punished. You know, and I had a kind of a childhood but David never told me. But that's the truth. But the point is, we had a wonderful, wonderful life together. As perfect as it gets. As perfect as it gets. Now, David was a wonderful employer. He had been very well trained. When he got his master's degree, it was a degree in personnel management. He had a formal degree from, that was his master's degree. He had a formal degree in business and management. And he managed for over 30 years, as Brian has told you, our orthopedic group, which was a big group. And he did some wonderful things. He did more wonderful things than I did. I operated on people, yeah. And I enjoyed my practice, but David held the group together, even when doctors were arguing with one another, and he'd call them in and mediate it, you know. And you know, most doctors' groups don't stay together, but we did for years and years and years. And we had some transgressions. If we had problems with employees, it would be David who took care of it. If we had problems with doctors, I took care of it. I had fired 3 of them over the years, you know, for various reasons. But David would do most of the mediation, and there wasn't much firing, almost none. Why? Because David considered all of you who worked for the Fort Lauderdale Orthopedic Group as family. Now, anybody that worked there, raise your hands. Ha! Look at that, Brian. Yeah. Now, I'm going to give you a little history. Most of you know work there, and some of you that didn't have any. They were David's family. He took good care of it. He had an office with 2 doors. The doors were always open. One side for the doctors to come in and either commiserate or have problems that David would solve, financial problems, whatever it was. The other door was open to all employees. And when we saw those doors closed, it was because David was getting a tearful earful. Maybe it was somebody that was having a problem with a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Maybe it was somebody who was about to get divorced. Maybe it was somebody with terrible, crushing financial problems. Whatever. But he never opened those doors until something had been solved. And you who were there know what I'm talking about. Okay. When I sold the Fort Lauderdale Orthopedic Group to Holy Cross Hospital, lock, stock, and barrel, doctors, everything, silly accounts receivable. Understand? You ever heard of a business deal like that? Ha! Ridiculous. But David engineered that. Why? You see, I would do the surgery. David took care of the financial problems. So he would interview every single patient before I did the surgery. Now, some of these people were millionaires. Some of them were like you and me and everybody else, and some of them had no money. So we always solved the problem. With our, and Patty, you remember this, with my Medicaid patients, I figured it cost more money to fill out the paperwork than it did than we would get paid by Medicaid. So I'd tear up the paper, never fill it out, just take care of the patient, and then I'd send a bill. Okay, whose advice was that? David, not mine. He was fantastic with that. We had many patients who had surgery done that, yeah, they could pay a bill, but not the bill. It's just too much for them. And what David would do would be to sit down with them behind closed doors and say, well, okay, what can you afford per month? It might only be $10 a month. It might be $25 a month. I never knew what it was, and I didn't care. Because our whole attitude, coming through David, was that we would never hurt the patient financially with our bills, no matter what. Well, we had many patients that went on for years and years, and David would tell them, hey, if you get to the point where you can't do this, we'll understand, just give us a call and let us know. That's okay. You know what? For years and years and years, they paid those little amounts. Now, I knew if I turned that all over to the hospital, you know Patty what they'd have done. They'd have foreclosed on it. I couldn't have that. But David was the one that set that up, and that's the truth. Now I'm talking about Patty. Raise your hand, Patty. She's something special. Very special. Patty came to us in the Fort Lauderdale Orthopedic Group right out of high school. And she was file clerk, and David saw potential in that. So he trained her and trained her and trained her, and she moved up and up and up the ladder over many years' time. And then when David had his first heart attack, which he did, I don't know, about 25 years ago, she kept the place running just fine till he got back in the saddle and was able to handle it. Eventually, when David retired, Patty became the director of the orthopedic group when it was Holy Cross Orthopedic Group. Yeah. So that's what he would do to the extent that he could with any employee that we had. He would always nurture them. If they were in a job that they didn't like, it wasn't working out, they'd have a conference and he would put that person in a job that they would like or could do, whatever. His whole idea was you treat your employees better than anybody else you keep. You don't have to fire them and they don't leave. And we had a very low attrition rate. When we moved the Fort Lauderdale Orthopedic Group to Holy Cross Hospital, it grew, more doctors, more employees, but the new employees were added to the employees that we had had, and they were Holy Cross employees. Our employees all called themselves the family. You'll remember that. Yeah, and then there were the others. Yeah, we got along, but the family was the family. And the family was nothing I did, it was David. It was his way of running things. And I know you remember it. Okay, some stories. One time, David and I were out fishing. We were fishing on surf. And we had a knife to cut a bait, and he cut his arm. We didn't want to tell him. I think I'm not going to find out. That's kids. So I took him to the local doctor's office, which was in the firehouse on the island there. The doctor sewed him up, put stitches on, a little dressing on and all that. But we were naive, and how he ever thought that Mama wouldn't find out. But that's the kind of thing we did together. Yeah, all kinds of things. I'll never forget them, and they're my memories, and nobody can ever take them away from me. Well, now let's go a little bit further. In Dave's last days, first of all, his first heart attack was a real problem because it didn't act like a heart attack. Now, you know, I'm a doctor, and I ought to be able to diagnose a heart attack, but I missed it completely. He and I were out fishing off Big Pine Key, and we had had an unbelievable day of tarpon fishing. It was just great, and all of a sudden, he didn't feel very good. Well, it was a July day with zero wind. Temperatures were right up there, and we were sweating. We hadn't been drinking enough because we'd been fishing, and I figured he's going into heat exhaustion. So I threw him overboard. Oh. Yeah, that's the truth. He was having a heart attack, and I threw him overboard. Not a very good doctor. These are true stories. Well, he immediately felt much better because the water was cooler than the air and that sort of thing. He climbed back up on the boat, and I fed him some Gatorade and some water. Felt pretty good. Figured out, I'm right, that's my diagnosis. He didn't have any chest pain, no left arm pain, none of the things we all know can happen with heart attack. But I knew he had to get back. No matter how good that fishing was, I fired up the iron, lifted up the anchor, and we made a run back home. We could pull him off even more. So I put him in the shade under the next door neighbor's house and turned a hose on for a heart attack. Yeah. I turned the hose on him, and he felt better and better and better because he was cooling off. Didn't have any chest pain or anything. The next day, Beverly drove him up to the office. And those of you who were there, Patty, I know you'll remember that he started feeling real bad. Fainting, maybe a little heart pain, maybe not. And he went to see his doctor downstairs. That was Dr. Alan Yesner, who, in my opinion, is a fine medical doctor. And Dr. Yesner stopped his practice immediately. He took an EKG and said, "David, you are in the process of having a heart attack." What did he do? He told his office manager to hold the fort, and he drove David himself over to the hospital, and David was admitted. Well, all kinds of things happened. He had to have a PTCA where they remount the coronary arteries with a catheter and that sort of thing. Eventually, he had another one, and then another one, and then he had to have a multiple coronary bypass and all of that. And all while he was going through most of that, Patty kept the doors open and kept things going. Yeah. Well, he survived. But it took its toll, especially since he was a chain smoker. Yeah, Brian, the way this worked was, I'm going to tell a story here. We were little kids. It's during the Depression. Remember, we didn't have any money. We lived in the outskirts of New York City in Queens, in a very nice neighborhood. My father was the only person on the block that had a job. He was principal at Plaza Business School in Flushing, New York, but wasn't making much money. David wanted to smoke. So what we would do, the two of us, I'm complicit in the crime. We would go along and we'd go along the gutter and pick up used cigarettes. That's what we would do. We'd take them back to the house without our parents knowing. And what we would do would be to open them up to get the tobacco out. But nobody would sell a kid tobacco even back then. And David had a corncob pipe that I helped him make. And he would put that tobacco in the pipe and smoke it. Well, that went on and on and on to real cigarettes during the war. You folks that are, nobody's as old as I am. Yeah, a couple of you are, but you remember that during the war, they had Roly Road. The Bugle Company showed a picture of a guy in a sailor suit, a blue sailor suit, and a bugle blowing. The Bugle brand roll your own. We couldn't buy the tobacco, but we could sure pick it up. And we would roll the cigarettes, and he would get it. And we had a language of our own. For example, jeans, they call them now. You wear the blue jeans, you know. They didn't call them that back then. There were two types. One was Levi's, and the other was dungarees. And David would always carry his cigarettes in the pocket here of his dungarees. So we'd take it out, the cigarette would be bent. We called that dungaree war. Yeah. So we had a language that went on with this, you know, and puffers. But there was one guy in town that smoked a weird thing that we couldn't pronounce, something like marijuana. We didn't know what it was. But we weren't exposed to many drugs. There was nothing like that. But to David, the cigarettes were drugs. He took them and he took them and he took them. You remember you folks that were there, you remember what his coffee cup looked like by 9 o'clock in the morning. It had cigarette ashes in it. And by noon it was cold, and he'd still drink it. You remember that? Well, but the cigarettes took their toll. It was they that produced all the blood vessels dying in his body, one by one and collectively, eventually. It was that produced the lung disease, the COPD, the congestive heart failure that went along with that, the coronary thrombosis. All of that was related to his smoking, you know. And it was compounded by the fact that when he was born, we didn't know this till many years later, he was born with only one functional kidney. We didn't know that over the years because it worked fine. It worked fine, but the rudimentary second kidney didn't work. And I apologize for this medical stuff, but maybe you need to know. Maybe you don't. But you see, that made the situation even worse because then he had to undergo all the treatment for progressive kidney failure on top of the heart, on top of the lung, on top of the blood vessels. Then he got a bowel obstruction, almost died with that. In fact, Beverly, his wife, went in one day to the hospital when he was about 12 days post-op, and she came out in tears to the nurse's station and said, I'm sorry, but I have to report my husband is dead. He looked that bad. Well, he wasn't. He bounced back from that. The point is, he could bounce back from anything. It was unbelievable. He had his dialysis, and finally, toward the end stages of dialysis, if they gave him the dialysis to save his life, because his kidney wasn't working, he would go into shock. Next thing you know, they had to call 911. He'd be taken to the hospital. He'd survive. This happened again and again and again and again. One last time it happened was down in Key West. Linda, you were there with me. And he had his dialysis, and the situation the next morning got worse and worse. He went into shock, and we had to get him down to the Lower Keys Medical Center. Well, he was so far gone at that point, they couldn't take care of him. So what they did was aerovac him by helicopter to Miami Beach, to the hospital there. He spent a long time there, and his kidneys were so bad, I mean, he was on the way out, that he had to have 48-hour dialysis. I'm a doctor, I never heard that before. Usually those sessions are 4 or 5 hours at the most, you know, but this was 48-hour dialysis. He survived that. Then he gets back in town, and one insult after another, and every time he survived it. Well, near the end, just a few days before the end, he was non-compos mentis. He was out of his head completely. He was picking at the sheets, not knowing what he was doing. He was trying to fix a broken hearing aid when it wasn't broken, and wasn't making any sense, and nobody could communicate with him, not even me. At that point, his doctors decided that all they could do for him was to make him uncomfortable and maybe make him worse with attempts at treatment. So he went to hospice, Holy Cross Hospice. Our mother and father died in Holy Cross Hospice years before, so he knew what that was. When he woke up, he said, "Why am I here in hospice?" He couldn't imagine why. He wanted out. Well, finally, his doctors came one by one and told him, "You're in multiple system failure." They said, "Anything we do is going to make you worse. So you got to make the decision." And I said, "Dave, you want out of hospice? You go ahead and sign the paper to get you out of hospice." But couldn't do it. He was beyond any treatment. And it took him a while to figure it out. But finally he did. And when he did, he got a peace that's hard for me to describe. He knew he was going. He knew he was going. Well, the last night in hospice, he was actually cheering. Hard to believe this. He woke up. No longer semi-conscious, no longer unconscious. He was alert. He couldn't hear anything, but he was fine. So what we had to do was to read reams and reams of paper and write notes so he could read them, and then he'd respond verbally, making perfect sense the whole time. The last thing that happened, and Priscilla, in my experience, Priscilla's my wife there, was that I asked Chris to thank him. For what? He had got a little trouble hanging it together, but I will. He had introduced us to one another on a blind date 66 years before. And she wrote that on a paper and showed it to him. He got a big smile and a sparkle in his eye and said, "Yeah." And then he looked over at me and he said, "We've had a great run," with a big smile on his face. My answer, which he could look read, was, "Yeah, 85 years. And he understood that fine, and that's the last I saw of him. Now we're talking about the twins and how there's a certain something between close brothers that we can't define. Susan was the first to learn that he had gone, early the next morning. What time did he go, Susan? 6:55. It may have been a little earlier than that, because at 6:15, I woke up. I felt something awful. I had a cold sweat. A yellow screen came across my eyes, and I knew. When you called me to let me know that he had gone, I wanted to say, "Yeah, I know." I didn't. I let you tell me, but I knew. Thank you.
I told you this was like one of my most favorite things that happens at a memorial service. Susan, come on up. God bless you.
So who would imagine that we would be here 2 months almost to the day that we celebrated another life? I'm looking at everybody's shoes, and I noticed that none of you are wearing black Crocs. Dad was always the fashionista of our family. And when we were here last, he was wearing a pair of black Crocs with brown support stockings. And he made sure to announce to everyone that there was an elephant in the room, and it was his shoes. There's not an elephant in the room today. I need to take a moment. You told me you wouldn't make me cry. But we go forward. Dad and I spent the last year together and the last 3 months with him living with me 24/7. And we talked about what he wanted today. And he asked me to share his thoughts with you. So the words that I'm sharing are really his thoughts and his words and his love for his family. He was so much more than David Clifford Hill. He was first and foremost the second born to Edmund and Louise Hill, the second half to the term Irish twin. From the moment he was born to the day before his passing, the connection between him and his brother Gordon was never broken. There was no greater love than the love of these two brothers and the commitment Pop had for his brother. While there are 1,001 stories, and honestly he could have gone on for days with them, I'd like to share one now with you all so you truly understand. In the quiet of his ICU room, Pop, Uncle Gordon, and I were immersed in a conversation about hospice. It was the first of many that we had with him. And at that time, Pop had made the decision he just wasn't ready to go. It was then his words said it all. Gordy, I can't be the first to go. I need you to go first. While that may sound odd to some of you, Pop then put it all into perspective. If you go first, I would then be the one to carry the hurt and sorrow of your passing. Even in death, there was a concern and a love for his brother, a gift I was so honored to have witnessed. Now, Uncle Mackie, we've heard a lot about you, and I'm sorry that you were 5 years younger and they abused you. But he shared a lot of stories about you and Uncle Gordon on Fire Island, and they were the original wagon brigade, as Dad told me. And they met the ferry, and they would transport everybody's belongings to their homes. And then when a little group of boys decided to take over, it was the Hill brothers that put them out of business. Use your imagination. He loved to tell this story, though, about how Mom had signed them all up for dance lessons. And Uncle Gordon and Pop didn't want to go. You had to go. You took one for the team. Now, he says he had the pleasure in making your life a challenge. But he would always say, when you mess with one, you get all three. And he protected you till the end. And I remember that day that you and Debbie came. And it was Pop giving advice to you. He loved you. Now, rounding out the inner core is Uncle Gordon's wife, Priscilla. I'm good. I'm good. Pop loved her like a sister and took great pride in knowing that he had played matchmaker. So much so that yesterday we found the original tickets to the movie the two of them went to on their first date. She didn't have it. He didn't have it. Pop had it. When they celebrated their 50th year wedding anniversary, Pop celebrated right along with them. He felt like he was the third spouse. Recently, while sharing his ancient history box, my sisters and I discovered that Pop, in his teen years, was quite an orator. He had been awarded not one, not two, not three, but 4 medals for public speaking by the New York American Legion. Nestled in the box was one of his medals and the speech that won him first place. It was about being an American. It was about taking pride in everyone who lived here. His words ring true today. He was, as it turns out, a writer as well. I don't know if you all knew that or not. But he once told me the story of Ghost Godfrey. Did you two know Ghost? She was the librarian of his elementary school, and she required that monthly, every student in the school turn in a book report, and only the best would be displayed on the wall. Now, month after month, it was Dad's book reports that went on the wall. It seems he had fallen in love with a great commander, one in whose every novel was able to solve the worst problems imaginable. And there was one tale where Cliff had actually figured out how to raise a sub off the ocean floor. The ghost decided it was time to buy every copy of those books and put them in her library. She looked in the card catalog, she probably went to the Library of Congress. The books could not be found anywhere. Finally, Pop had to come clean, and he said, "I never had time to read books. I was always with my brother. I wrote those a half hour before they were due." And if you've ever heard him say, "There's another submarine off the ocean floor," that was Clifford's favorite phrase, and his middle name was Clifford. Now, whenever he had